Hi, this is Ryan, and I want to tell you about some school history, and then I'm going to get into a different topic, okay? So, when I was in kindergarten, my mom homeschooled me, and then when I was supposed to go into first grade, she wanted me and my sister, Hannah Elizabeth Poe at the time, and Matthew David Poe, going to Dominion Christian School. It was near Harry S. Truman's farmstead, his boyhood home in Grandview, Missouri. It was at the Metro Christian Fellowship Church building, and inside that church building, they had school for students between kindergarten and ninth grade. And when kids left Dominion Christian School after they finished education in ninth grade, they would either transfer to KC Prep, O'Hara, Rockhurst, places like that, or a public school system, whatever. But I went to Dominion Christian. The building today that Dominion Christian School was in, inside of the church Metro Christian Fellowship, it's a building. It's in the same building, but it's called Forerunners School of Ministry, and they have church services on Sunday. I believe Mike Bickle, the pastor in Kansas City, Missouri, formed that. And then off of Red Bridge Road, Mike Bickle, also in Grandview, Missouri, also formed IHOP, International House of Prayer. And they have worship and prayers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they have different worship teams that come in every 2 or 3 hours, so it can stay open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But anyways, Metro Christian Fellowship, the church, was in the present day building Forerunner School of Ministry, and back when I was younger in the 90s, it was Metro Christian Fellowship Church, and our Dominion Christian School, and our mascot was the Stallions. It was inside of the church. I had a good education. When I ended up entering the public school system in 7th grade, they gave placement tests, and I was put in I was reacclimated at 2 different classes. I could have been in, they called it Pre-Algebra 1, but I tested out of that math, and they put me in Pre-Algebra 2, and then they gave me an English test, and I kept my honors English until 9th grade when I was expelled from the Belton School District. But I went to Dominion Christian School 1st through 5th grade. My mom homeschooled me in kindergarten. And I ended up leaving Dominion Christian School at the time after my 5th grade year had finished. My mom had met her present husband today, Paul Preston Walker, and they had been dating for a year. He moved in with her in our house on 163rd Street that my dad left her after the divorce. My mom divorced my dad when I was 7 years old, and he left her the house, and, anyway, so Paul Preston Walker met my mom. They married, and they've been married for like 20 or 21 years now. But when Paul moved in, and he built a house on a piece of land off of Route Y in Belton, Missouri. It's called Deer Meadows Subdivision today, and they live off of 196th Street, and their house number is 5209. They have an in-ground pool in the backyard. They have a jacuzzi. They have gardens. They have 5 acres. They have 2 horses. They have a two-car garage across from the house connected to the barn for their horses. They have 2 horses, Cody and Libby. And then they have a 3-car garage on their house. And they told me if we finished the basement in the house, this house would have 5,000 square feet. I said, oh, yeah, that's the attic space in the basement. It's a 5,000 square foot home if you finish the attic and the basement. But anywho, well, while I was going to Belton, this is the topic I was getting into after that. My education was real good there at Dominion. I learned cursive. My first grade year, I learned print. And between 2nd and 3rd grade, they started teaching me cursive writing. And believe it or not, I mean, it was a really good school. It really was. And when I went into the public school system, in 6th grade, they didn't do pre-placement testing. They did that in 7th grade, and I got in 2 advanced placement classes, English and an advanced form of mathematics. So, but anywho, I went to school in Belton, and there was this nice upperclassman on the bus. She was real overweight, okay? She was like class of 2006, and ever since I met her, they called her Jessica. She said her name was Jessica Lemon. Lemmon. Jessica Lemon. She was real overweight, but she was real handsome in her face, like beautiful, real woman-like, not butchy, like buzzed hair. She kept her hair tightly rolled behind her head, and she was just real charming. She had an accent in her mouth. She was just real funny. Like, if you hung out with her, you'd say, as a guy, I'm hanging out with one of the guys, because she was so charming, funny, and loving. She was a real cool lady, but she was real overweight. If you go to Deer Meadows subdivision, right, so you take Route Y from North Avenue and Belton, all the way down, and there's 2 highways past 196th Street. You can go into Peculiar from those highways, or you can take the straight road and go all the way into Cleveland, Missouri from that Route Y. But if you go into Deer Meadows from Route Y and turn right on 196, you take 196th Street to Stockman Road, you turn left on Stockman Road, and you go all the way down that street, and there's a stop sign, and if you turn right at that stop sign, there's a cul-de-sac. If you go straight at the stop sign, there's another cul-de-sac, and if you turn left, that's the street that Jessica Lemon lived on, about 4 or 5 houses down. After you turn left on that street, her house was 4 or 5 houses down, and I loved talking to her. She was real lovely, and I liked her so much. I was attracted to her in a way of, like, being a boyfriend, because she was such a nice and charming woman. She looked at me with these great eyes and had that, like, she was real feminine, right? Not guy or butchy or lesbian. Real feminine, but she had a disclosure in her interaction regarding friendships and social activity, where it's like, when you're with Jessica, it's like hanging out with one of the guys, but you didn't feel like she was a lesbian. So I had an attraction to her, and she was always nice to me as a person. Well, one year I got on the bus, and one of my neighbors down the street, who I was friends with at the time, class of 2007 she said, Ryan, Jessica Lemon died. And I said, oh my gosh, what? And she said, yeah, she died. And I was sad and heartbroken, but I was talking to Angels the other day about what happened. And I was talking to Jessica's spirit, and she said, Ryan, it was premeditated homicide that ended my life. And she said in her spirit, I could have lived 20 or 30 years longer in this body. She was overweight, about 4 or 5 times the size she should have been. Or 4 times. 3 or 4 times the size she should have been. And, I talked to her spirit, and she said, it was premeditated homicide, Ryan. If they left me alone, I would have lived for 20 or 30 years longer, at least. That's how healthy I was. Because I asked her, was it natural? And she said, no, it wasn't. And she was just talking to me as a friend. She wasn't defensive with me. She was mad because of what happened. And the other thing was, I said, God, who's responsible for doing this to Jessica? And, he said the Lauermen were responsible for killing your friend Jessica Lemon, Ryan. Lauermen. And it sounded like a last name when they told me. And how the Angels, when they told me that name, they spelled it Laurmen or Laurman. Lauerman. Ryan was responsible for ending Jessica's life. And Jessica also said Belton doesn't know what they have coming to them today. Her spirit was, I was talking with Jessica's spirit. And she said they don't know what they have in coming to them today, Ryan, because I said, why? Because she said they have a government, a psychologist, doctor, examining high school students before they enter graduation. And he wonders if they even should be noticed to be around socially, publicly, or even let alone, which is the last resort for them, and themselves as people. Belton Cass County, Missouri School District, Jessica said, has a secret government doctor psychologist that views graduates before they graduated and wonders if they even should be around. And she was real upset about it. She says he has no idea what's coming to him and them that's responsible for it. And she said, they said Lauerman was responsible for the death of your friend Jessica Lemon, Ryan. That's what they said. And when Ryan heard Lauerman, he thought, is that a secret word for like CIA agents? But then I thought about it, and it sounded like a last name. Lauerman. Laurmen or Laurman. So, whatever it was, the angels said Jessica didn't. The angels said, Jessica told me other things, but she said, or the angels said, Lauerman, Ryan, was responsible for killing Jessica. And I was talking to Jessica, I swear I did, and she said, Ryan, I wasn't unhealthy to die. They did something there with me. Oh gosh. And she said I could have lived 20 or 30 years longer in that body that I had. At least, she said. So, and then I got on the bus another day, and you know what they told me? Oh, Jessica's older brother tried committing suicide, and Ryan said, how did he commit suicide? They said he parked his car in his mother's garage, this was after Jessica died. He parked his truck in the garage of their home, her parents' home, and ran the exhaust. Her brother was an old upperclassman, older than she. I don't know what year he was, but I've seen him before. He had glasses, pale skin, and black hair. He was skinnier. He wasn't overweight. But anyways, that's just the truth, and that's just a scary thing, man. And that's what happened. And God also told Ryan that the Deer Meadows neighboring community on Stockman Road, 196th, and if you take Stockman all the way down to the stop sign, you turn right, there's a cul-de-sac. You go straight, there's a cul-de-sac. You turn left, it's a road that leads you back to Route Y. He said that whole subdivision, they have a Via Spectrum home. I said, what is a Via Spectrum home, God? And he said it's a Virginia Intelligence electronic operating house. It monitors technology, things, and activities in the community. And God told Ryan there is such a it's gone on since 1964 to 1972 it started, but there's such a bothersome, and it wasn't always called Deer Meadows. An angel said Stockman Road could have been changed, and it could have been called Deer Creek Road, or Deer Creek Subdivision, a Creekside Road, but it's Stockman Road today. It's Deer Meadows today. There's a John neighboring community, and if you look at all the IDs living in that neighborhood, God told there's detectives and government men there. Look at the IDs of the ones owning the home, get back into their criteria. There's government men there, but there's a conspiracy that would bother your own Ryan's own Kansas government would be creeped, who are familiar with ideas. Okay, they are, but it would creep out your own Kansas government officials to know what's gone on in that whole entire neighborhood you mentioned in the roadways and pathing system through it. There's a conspiracy there. It's bothered my heart, God said, for years. And it would creep out your own Kansas government detectives if they found out all the history and what was in and out of those homes and what's gone on. But they thought so much of it, they put a VIA Spectrum operating house there, which is Virginia Intelligence Electronics Operating House, and it surveils everything, technology coming in, social, all that stuff. So, anyways, please look into it. Thank you. Bye.